In the world's third largest gold producer, Africa, the precious metal is seen as a symbol of wealth, power, and majesty. It is also seen as a means of exchange should a country's currency collapse. Many countries in the continent, such as Mali, Ghana, and DR Congo, among others, have seen companies from the West set up their mining operations to get hold of this difficult-to-extract metal, whose prices have increased in recent months. But a growing anti-West sentiment, especially in the West African country of Mali, has made it difficult for foreign mining companies to operate.
Africa is shaking the world once again. A discovery so massive, so unimaginable, that it could rewrite the very balance of global power. In Mali and Niger, two nations long underestimated on the world stage, geologists have confirmed gold reserves worth more than $5 trillion. Yes, you heard that right. $5 trillion. The revelation has sent tremors through international markets, left the International Monetary Fund deeply unsettled, and triggered whispers of panic in Western capitals. What does this discovery mean for Africa, for the global economy, and for the centuries-old struggle over the continent's resources? Tonight, we take you deep inside the story, the gold, the geopolitics, and the growing movement to turn Africa's resources into Africa's future. In late August, local reports began circulating of unusual exploration activities near Mali's region and across the Sahelian belt that stretches into Niger. Within weeks, independent confirmations arrived, multiple gold deposits, interconnected, massive in scale, and conservatively valued at over $5 trillion. To put this in perspective, this is nearly twice the GDP of the entire African continent, and more than the combined gold reserves of the United States, Germany, and Italy put together. For Mali and Niger, two landlocked nations often portrayed as struggling under economic hardship, this could be a transformational moment. For the wider world, it is nothing short of a geopolitical earthquake. For decades, Mali has been one of Africa's top gold producers, often referred to as the third largest producer on the continent. Yet much of its wealth has historically flowed outward, benefiting foreign corporations more than the Malian people. Niger, meanwhile, is best known for its uranium exports, a critical component in global nuclear energy. But now, the discovery of vast gold reserves across their shared Sahelian frontier has catapulted these two nations into the center of global attention. What makes this discovery so dramatic is not only the sheer scale of the gold deposits, but also the timing. Both Mali and Niger are undergoing political transformations, marked by military-led governments rejecting old colonial ties and asserting sovereignty in ways that challenge Western dominance. In Bamako and Niamey, leaders have wasted no time framing the discovery as a victory for African self-determination. Officials in Mali have called it a gift of history and pledged that this time, gold will serve the people, not foreign powers. The International Monetary Fund, often described as the world's financial firefighter, is reportedly uneasy. For decades, institutions like the IMF and World Bank have shaped Africa's economic destiny through loans, debt programs, and financial conditionalities. But what happens when two nations suddenly hold mineral wealth that could dwarf their debts, rewrite their budgets, and make them financially independent? Analysts suggest that if Mali and Niger manage to harness even a fraction of this $5 trillion resource, they could break free from IMF influence and inspire other African nations to follow suit. This is why insiders describe the IMF as terrified, not because of the gold itself, but because of what it represents, the possibility of Africa slipping out of financial dependence. Across the Atlantic, the reaction has been one of unease. European governments, many of which still source critical raw materials from Africa, are scrambling to assess what this discovery could mean. One senior European diplomat, speaking anonymously, admitted, "If Mali and Niger consolidate control over these reserves, we could be witnessing the birth of an economic bloc capable of reshaping trade with Europe." In Washington, reports indicate that policymakers are concerned about who will ultimately partner with Mali and Niger to develop the reserves. With growing Russian and Chinese engagement in West Africa, Western governments fear losing both economic and strategic influence. Africa's history of wealth without prosperity. To understand why this discovery is so monumental, we must look back at history. For centuries, Africa has been a paradox, a continent of immense natural wealth, yet often trapped in cycles of poverty. Gold, diamonds, oil, uranium, the story has been the same. Resources leave, profits flow outward, and local populations see little benefit. Colonial powers built empires on African gold. Post-colonial corporations continued the trend under different names. But the mood in Mali and Niger today is different. Leaders and citizens alike are openly declaring that this gold will not follow the old script. The question, of course, is whether they can withstand the pressure that always follows such declarations. The discovery has not only shaken the West, it has electrified Africa. From Dakar to Johannesburg, commentators are calling it a potential Pan-African turning point. Social media is flooded with posts celebrating Mali and Niger as symbols of African pride. Some are even calling the gold discovery the Sahelian gift to Africa. Neighboring governments are watching closely. Burkina Faso, already aligned with Mali and Niger in a regional alliance rejecting French influence, has described the find as a shared opportunity that could transform West Africa into an economic powerhouse. Cliffhanger: will gold become a blessing or a curse? But here lies the challenge. Africa's history is full of moments when resource wealth brought not prosperity, but instability. Economists call it the resource curse, where riches fuel corruption, conflict, and foreign interference instead of development. The trillion-dollar question is this: can Mali and Niger break that cycle? Can they transform this discovery into schools, hospitals, roads, and industries? Or will it become yet another chapter of exploitation and missed opportunities? In the next part of this report, we will examine the strategies being discussed inside Mali and Niger, the role of international players, and the rising possibility of a new Pan-African gold standard that could challenge the dominance of the dollar and euro. The discovery of $5 trillion worth of gold in Mali and Niger is not just a financial story. It is a geopolitical earthquake. Behind closed doors, powerful institutions are recalculating their strategies. And at the center of it all stands the International Monetary Fund, nervous, unsettled, and deeply concerned. For decades, the IMF has acted as both lifeline and leash for developing nations. Loans come with conditions: cut subsidies, privatize industries, open markets. These measures often keep governments dependent, locking entire economies into cycles of repayment. But now, imagine a Mali or Niger with the financial muscle of trillions in gold. Suddenly, the balance of power flips. Instead of knocking on the IMF's door for survival, these nations could dictate terms on the global stage. Economists warn that if Mali and Niger leverage even 10% of these reserves, they could pay off national debts, rebuild infrastructure, and create sovereign wealth funds to rival those of oil-rich Gulf states. That's the nightmare scenario for the IMF, an Africa that no longer needs them. In Washington, Paris, and Brussels, the mood is uneasy. Western officials know what this discovery means. Influence is slipping, and fast. European industries depend heavily on African raw materials. Gold is more than jewelry. It's the backbone of banking systems, electronics, and high-tech industries. If Mali and Niger decide to bypass Western corporations and institutions, Europe could face shortages and rising costs. A former French intelligence officer told Africa News off the record, "This discovery changes everything. The fear is not the gold itself, but the alliances Mali and Niger might form to manage it. If Russia or China gain priority, Western access could collapse overnight." Indeed, both Moscow and Beijing are already positioning themselves. China, with its Belt and Road Initiative, has long-eyed Africa as a strategic partner. In recent years, it has poured billions into infrastructure, railways, and mining agreements across the continent. For China, securing access to $5 trillion in gold would mean securing leverage in the global financial system. Russia, meanwhile, has grown closer to Mali and Niger after their recent break with France. Security agreements, military support, and economic cooperation have already deepened ties. A gold partnership would only cement this alignment. For the West, the optics are disastrous. Africa turning east, powered by its own gold, rejecting old colonial ties. In Bamako, Mali's interim leaders have struck a defiant note. A government spokesman declared, "This gold is not just Mali's. It is Africa's, and this time, we will not allow it to be stolen." In Niamey, Niger's military leadership echoed the sentiment, promising that revenues from the reserves will go into education, healthcare, and infrastructure, not into the pockets of foreign corporations. For ordinary citizens, the mood is electric. Markets buzz with speculation. Social media is ablaze with pride. Across the Sahel, the phrase "Africa's time has come" is trending. But history casts a long shadow. From the scramble for Africa in the 19th century to the resource-driven conflicts of the late 20th century, resource wealth has too often been a magnet for exploitation and instability. Experts warn that the discovery of such vast reserves could also attract unwanted attention. Pressure campaigns, covert operations, even attempts to destabilize governments. African historians caution, every time Africa finds wealth, outsiders come running. The question is, will this generation protect it, or will the cycle repeat? Perhaps the most revolutionary idea emerging from this discovery is the possibility of a Pan-African gold-backed currency. Economists across the continent are quietly floating proposals. If African nations pooled a portion of their gold reserves into a collective financial mechanism, they could launch a currency independent of the dollar, euro, or CFA franc. Such a move would be radical and threatening to the global financial order. For decades, Africa's economies have been pegged to foreign currencies, limiting sovereignty. A gold-backed African standard could break those chains. Supporters argue that with Mali and Niger holding trillions in reserves, the foundation is already there. Global gold markets have already shown signs of unease. Prices spiked briefly after reports of the discovery surfaced, with traders warning of potential long-term restructuring of supply chains. In London and New York, speculation is rampant. How quickly can Mali and Niger bring this gold to market? Will they sell directly to BRICS nations? Will they bypass traditional trading platforms altogether? Some analysts say this could mark the beginning of a multipolar gold economy, with Africa as a central player. The discovery is also strengthening regional alliances. Burkina Faso, already aligned with Mali and Niger in the new Alliance of Sahel States, has described the gold find as a shared treasure for West Africa. Leaders in Guinea, Ghana, and Nigeria have also expressed cautious optimism, calling for African unity in managing such resources. For many Africans, this is more than economics. It is symbolism. At last, a chance to reclaim the wealth that for centuries has flowed outward, enriching others while the continent remained poor. But the struggle is just beginning. Mali and Niger face enormous challenges: lack of infrastructure, limited refining capacity, and the ever-present risk of foreign interference. The world is watching closely. Investors, politicians, and even intelligence agencies are monitoring every move. And behind the scenes, pressure is mounting. Deals are being proposed, offers whispered, contracts drafted. The gold is real. The stakes are higher than ever. In Mali and Niger, the sands of history are shifting. A discovery of $5 trillion in gold has turned two Sahelian nations into global power players overnight. The IMF is unsettled, Western capitals are on edge, and Africa stands at a crossroads. Will this gold be the key to freedom, building schools, hospitals, and industries for generations to come? Or will it become yet another curse, stolen, exploited, and wasted as in centuries past? One thing is clear: Africa is no longer a silent spectator in the world economy. From Bamako to Niamey, from Dakar to Johannesburg, a new chorus is rising. And it carries a single, undeniable message: Africa's wealth belongs to Africa, and the world must adjust to a new reality. The gold has been found. The question now is not whether it exists, but how Africa will use it.
Welcome to African Spotlight 24, your premier source for news and current affairs from across the continent. We're glad you're here. If you're new to our channel, please subscribe, like, and turn on notification to stay up to date with the latest news and analysis. Your support helps us reach more people. Disclaimer: the content of this video is based on credible, publicly available information and is intended for educational, analytical, and informational purposes only. African Spotlight 24 does not promote hate, violence, misinformation, or political unrest. Our goal is to deliver thoughtful insights, highlight local voices, and encourage informed conversations throughout Africa.